pronounce it? Like a drink.
Downstairs.
More? Well, do you have them on paper?
Your knees can go. This is about knees.
No one wants any more, we don't want to scare each other. That's just not. Good. Yeah, go get it.
The subcommittee will come to order. I ask unanimous consent that the chair be authorized to declare a recess at any time. Without objection, so ordered. Good morning. Today, this joint hearing will receive testimony on mobility, aircraft relevance, and survivability in a contested environment. And in the interest of time, with upcoming votes, I'd like to submit my opening statement for the record. Before I yield, I want to thank General Minihan for 34 years of remarkable service and leading the great men and women of the Air Mobility Command. I'd also like to thank General Minihan's wife, Ashley, of soon-to-be 33 years for her hard work and dedication. I'd now like to yield to Ranking Member Courtney for any opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairman. And again, I'm going to join you in terms of just submitting my opening statement for the record so we can move this along. I want to join you in, again, congratulating General Minihan on his distinguished service. And, you know, we're going to miss you, and it seems like it was a blink of an eye. But obviously, you've had to deal with an unbelievable moment in time in terms of your mission, and want to, again, salute and congratulate you for an incredibly good and well job done. And I also want to, again, give a shout out to Ranking Member John Garamendi, who I think all of us he's in our thoughts as he's you know, undergoing medical treatment for a serious condition. But I think all of us have confidence that he's going to be back in the saddle soon, and he's got able representation here with Mr. Davis, who's going to fill in for him. But if John's listening, again, you know, keep it up, and we're all rooting for you. Yield back.
I now recognize Chairman Waltz.
Thank you, Chairman, and I too want to congratulate you, General Minihan, and also commend your excellent, outstanding judgment in retiring to the great free state of Florida. I hope that's noted down the line. But I really look forward to. I was looking forward to this hearing. I think it's incredibly important. Frankly, it's a gap that we need to work together to fill. Not only line of sight and over-the-horizon communications, but also the training that our airmen need in this new contested environment. And I yield back.
My friend, Mr. Davis.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the witnesses who are here today for this important topic. Before I begin, I would like to also mention Ranking Member John Garamendi. Let us please continue to keep him in our prayers. He is strong, he's determined, and I look forward to seeing him back here. I would also extend hearty recognition to General Minihan. We were talking earlier, and you just seem like I'm not sure what's going on these days. But congratulations, and thank you for your amazing service to our country. At this time, I would ask for unanimous consent to enter the remainder of my opening statement into the written records.
Without objection. All opening statements in the full will be admitted into the record since we forego those. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Today we have an outstanding panel of 3 witnesses: General Mike Minihan, the Commander of Air Mobility Command; Lieutenant General David Tabor, Chief of Staff for Plans and Programs. Congratulations on your promotion and new job, and we look forward to working you in the next few years. Finally, we have Admiral Trinque, Director of Strategic Plans, Policy and Logistics, United States Transportation Command. General Minihan, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairmans Kelly and Waltz, Ranking Members Courtney and Davis, distinguished members of the committees, good morning. It is my honor to join you today with my wingman, mentor, and motivator, Command Chief, Chief Master Sergeant Jamie Newman. Together we have the distinct privilege to represent the men, women, and families of Air Mobility Command. 110,000 total force airmen, Guard, Reserve, active duty civilians, and of course their amazing families. Every day, I am immensely proud of their dedication to safeguarding our nation 24/7, 365, around the globe, in competition, crisis, and conflict, flying, fixing, supporting a fleet of over 1,100 aircraft. It's an honor to watch them in action every day as they support the Joint Force and our partners and allies. Also joining me today are Lieutenant General Dave Tabor and Rear Admiral Trinque. We thank you for your steadfast support and for inviting us to discuss mobility Air Force connectivity. I'm approaching the final months of my command and have reached the end of my 34-year Air Force career. It is my firm and unchallenged belief that our air mobility air forces are the most relied upon force in the history of warfare. And yet they are also the least connected and most vulnerable. It is an operational fact that our mobility air forces, by their nature, are a stand-in force. In order to deploy, sustain, and maneuver the joint force, we must operate inside the enemy's weapons engagement zone. Decades of low-intensity conflict and decades of underinvestment in mobility connectivity have left our air mobility assets, to include aircraft and our ground support systems, without the ability to tie into current Air Force and joint battle networks, leaving them blind to Blue Force movements and Red Force threats. We are behind. Without an immediate and significant commitment, our air mobility fleet will continue to lack the battle space awareness necessary to win against a peer adversary. With connectivity, our air mobility enterprise will create synergistic effects for the joint team, allowing them to sense, make sense, and maneuver at the tempo necessary to prevail. The overall risk to mission is palpable. History proves America relies on air mobility repeatedly and often to demonstrate America's will, to demonstrate America's might, to demonstrate America's compassion, and to demonstrate America's readiness. Continued absence of the right type and right quality of connectivity limits our ability to close long-standing gaps in capability, survivability for the entire joint force. In a conflict in the Indo-Pacific AOR, the mobility fleet will be the first to take off and the first to the fight, likely completing sorties well over 24 hours duration to move the entire joint force at the required velocity and required mass. Those precious first moments of conflict are sure to be dynamic, and it is critical that our most relied upon assets have the connectivity and therefore the awareness to put our joint force in a position of advantage. This time last year, my goal was to establish a mobility air forces at 25% connectivity by the year 2025, 25 by 25, as an intermediate foundational step to what we really need, which is the entire MAF enterprise connected. Regrettably, at this point, 25 by 25 is not possible. We are running out of time, and the need to act is even more urgent if we are going to be prepared when the nation calls. Undaunted, my team has plans to do everything we can do to catch up. Simply put, the longer we wait, the more risk the nation incurs, and the more risk the nation incurs, the more expensive it is to solve it. We plan to equip fielded forces and aircraft, along with mobile, fixed, and ground facilities, with the right tools to gain shared awareness and maintain decision advantage in crisis and conflict. In creating this plan, my team has been lockstep with the Headquarters Air Force's Command Control, Communications, and Battle Management Team, C3BM, as well as other key stakeholders across the DoD, like Transcom and the Joint All-Domain Command and Control Line of Effort, JADC2. We are ready to execute. In my 34 years in the Air Force, I can tell you one thing: airmen are the magic. Through their tenacity, grit, and determination, airmen routinely fill the gap between what they have and what they need. Have no doubt, our total force air mobility airmen will fill the gap and will win. Our job, my job, is to close the gap and to make an unfair victory for America, to give airmen and the entire joint force the tools necessary to deliver deterrence and decisive victory if necessary. I thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General Minihan. General Tabor.
Thank you, Chairman Kelly, Chairman Waltz, ranking members Courtney and Davis, and distinguished members of both subcommittees. I appreciate each of you for having us here today to provide testimony on the importance of connectivity across the Department of the Air Force, with specific focus on mobility aircraft. For over 75 years, the nation has trusted the Air Force to deliver capable, credible combat power to deter and prevail against any threat to our homeland and our interests. Our citizens, our sister services, our allies, and our partners have long held faith in the Department of the Air Force's ability to rapidly project power across the globe. Our adversaries believe it and respect it as well. Over the last 20 years, the near surety of America's air and space forces dominating over any adversary has become less certain and more qualified. Our competitors watch us closely as we operated in relatively permissive environments, identifying perceived vulnerabilities and investing in technologies and capabilities to negate and overcome our warfighting advantages. Despite these challenges, America's service members remain resolutely committed to meeting any challenge and defeating any foe that threatens the United States with our current capabilities. Today, we are in a race for technological superiority. Failure to address the growing capability gaps that exist today severely increases the risk to future warfighters. To maintain the confidence of our airmen and their fellow Americans, we must prioritize investment in our operational imperatives and transform for the future. We are grateful for the support we have received from Congress in pursuit of these priorities and appreciate the continued partnership as we build a modernized, flexible, connected, and survivable future force. This is no easy task. It requires tough choices, sacrifices, and strategies to balance today's readiness with tomorrow's needs. It also requires trust and a willingness to accept some near-term risk in return for enduring long-term benefits. The Air Force will continue to seek disruptive technologies, material advantages, and organizational efficiencies to outpace the growing military capabilities of potential adversaries, while judiciously safeguarding our readiness responsibilities to the joint force. The organizational changes we are making at the headquarters level and within our major commands institutionalize the programs needed to achieve our operational imperatives. These changes allow us to continue to adapt our modernization strategy to meet evolving demands. Timely budgets and flexibility in authorizations and appropriations allow the Department of the Air Force to preserve our ability to deliver decisive combat power at the time and place of our choosing. We cannot afford, in terms of both money and manpower, to simultaneously maintain yesterday's legacy force structure, maintain readiness to support combatant commanders, and modernize for victory in a highly contested environment. This creates a dilemma, not a choice, for the Department of the Air Force. Delaying and diverting the focus of our operational imperatives sacrifices both today's operational readiness and tomorrow's modernization. The demand of global operations requires critical mass of air refueling tankers and airlift platforms with specific survivability and agility capabilities, with mission-capable rates that meet combatant commander timelines. Increasing connectivity on our mobility aircraft improves the ability of our mobility platforms to communicate with the joint force while in flight and expands their situational awareness and survivability. In closing, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to testify. I look forward to working with each of you to ensure the United States Air Force is equipped and prepared to meet the national security objectives outlined in the 2022 National Defense Strategy. The Air Force is grateful for your steadfast leadership in helping us build the modernized, combat-ready force we need to meet the challenges presented by our strategic competitors. Thank you for your continued support of our airmen and their families.
Thank you, General, and I now recognize Admiral Trinque.
Chairman Kelly, Chairman Waltz, Ranking Member Courtney, Ranking Member Davis, distinguished members of the subcommittees, good morning. It is my honor to represent the men and women of United States Transportation Command as we defend the nation, take care of our people, and succeed through teamwork. I'm extremely proud of our team of logistics professionals who lead the Joint Deployment and Distribution Enterprise, continually exceed expectations, and ensure hope, deterrence, and victory are assured as we contribute to our nation's defense. I'm honored to join General Minihan and Lieutenant General Tabor today. AMC's mobility aircraft fleet is unique U.S. capability necessary to implement TRANSCOM's national defense strategy requirement to rapidly execute and sustain power projection globally. The distances required to face our pacing challenge in the Pacific warrant velocity at scale, and our mobility aircraft fleet provides that advantage. However, while spanning these great distances, our ability to maintain connectivity with our air mobility assets is threatened during a near-peer conflict. Connectivity is foundational to the air mobility enterprise's ability to project, maneuver, and sustain the joint force. Without it, our air mobility fleets will continue to lack battle space awareness necessary to survive in the increasingly complex and contested operational environment. Connectivity is vital to the credibility of our air mobility capacity and our ability to meet joint force demands at the time and place of our choosing. After decades of operations in permissive environments, our air mobility fleet lacks the ability to use current and future Air Force and joint battle networks, leaving them blind to friend and foe alike. Our asymmetric advantage to globally project and sustain power on demand depends on air mobility to demonstrate our readiness and national will, in crisis or conflict, at relevant velocity and mass. Successful prosecution of this mission is a strategic imperative. It relies on the survivability of our air mobility enterprise, for which battle space awareness is a prerequisite and unachievable without connectivity. This is an issue of utmost consequence. I fully support Air Mobility Command's efforts to rapidly connect its fleets. Modernizing the mobility enterprise to deliver, maneuver, and sustain the joint force against a peer adversary at relevant velocity and location means prioritizing connectivity, which directly enhances battlespace awareness and thus survivability. I appreciate Lieutenant General Tabor and the Air Force A8 team for addressing these gaps. The fiscal year 25 budget request made strides in closing gaps in our mobility areas as we prepare for global operations in a contested environment. A contested environment is the reality of today. Whether in the homeland or abroad, we cannot presume freedom of maneuver to execute operations with full access to our lines of communications. A connected, aware, and survivable mobility fleet and network is needed to maintain our advantage against a capable and determined near-peer adversary. Thank you once again for your leadership and the support you provide our workforce, both military and civilian. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Admiral. I also want to recognize our senior enlisted leaders, our junior officers back there, and our DOD civilians, the teams behind y'all. I realize how important they are to your testimony and the running of all of our components of DOD. General Minihan, I now recognize myself for questions. General Minihan, not only is connectivity important across long distances, but also in operation like Niger retrograde. Can you talk us through how connectivity supported this operation?
Certainly. Thank you for the question, Chairman. When we first were doing the initial planning for Niger operations, we knew instantly from our lessons learned from everything from the Kabul evacuation to the initial Ukraine response, and then, specifically, very recently, Israel, we absolutely understand the critical capabilities that connectivity provides. So we did some work with industry, we did some work with the Air Force and Transcom, and we got 2 of the airplanes supporting that with what I would call the connectivity that I desire. The connectivity that provides both line of sight and beyond line of sight, secure comms, so that we can link in with the Joint Force. As you know, everything's about the Joint Force. This isn't about Air Mobility Command. This is about the support to soldier, sailor, Air Marines, Coast Guard, Guardians, everything. And so what we're finding out now is when an airplane takes off from Europe to go do a mission down to Niger, is we've got instant connectivity. We know the current status of the airfield. We know the current status of the Joint Force on those airfields. We know the security measures. We know the fuel state. We know the cargo state. And that ability is an absolute game changer. It both helps with effectiveness and efficiency, but most importantly, it helps with the security of Americans. Both the air crew and those on the ground. So it would have been wonderful to have that connectivity during the Kabul evacuation. We didn't. So what we've demonstrated is we're taking those lessons learned, we're backing it up with data, and then we're moving forward with affordable capabilities that exist now that don't require massive modifications to the airplanes, and we're having wonderful effects in the airspace and in the battlefield.
Thank you, General Minihan. And lessons learned, especially for some of those young officers back there, we all make mistakes, but we have to learn from those lessons and improve and fix those. General Tabor, I said a little more, less southern this time, Tabor. What percentage of the mobility fleet is connected today?
Thank you, Chairman. Tabor's perfectly acceptable. So we are making strides to connect it, but I think to General Minihan's point, the answer is not nearly enough. We have several programs that are underway that you will see appearing in and continuing from previous budgets, but appearing in the 25 budget. But frankly, it's not enough for the challenge that we see, especially as we prepare to go into contested environments. It is something that is an extremely high priority for us, and we will continue to fund for it. But right now, I would just simply say that it is insufficient, even as we continue to make strides to make as many of them connected as possible.
Thank you, General. I now yield back the balance of my time and recognize my friend and ranking member, Joe Courtney.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just want to follow up on your questions so with the scenario in Niger, there was kit that was installed that actually did at least, makes an impact in terms of connectivity. I just want to be clear on the fact that, that was sort of an example of where we can solve this problem.
Yes, sir, Ranking Member. what we executed in the summer of 2023 with Mobility Guardian, we took the experimental kits and we put them in play in the Pacific. And we learned a lot of lessons from that. First of all, we learned that connectivity makes everybody's life better. But these are roll-on kits. So they require a modification to use an antenna or add an antenna to the top of the aircraft. And then a kit like Arctic or a kit like Adams can come onto the aircraft and take up about a pallet position. It's a combination of radios and servers. It gives us access to satellites. So these are commercial solutions that provide an enormous amount of download capability with zero latency, which is the most precious quality, is can I get the data, the amount of data I need in the time that I need it, and that's what these capabilities provide. That's exactly what's executing in Niger right now.
So Admiral Trinque in his testimony stated that the president's budget that came over made strides in terms of closing this gap we're discussing this morning. And obviously that budget was operating under caps that were put into place by the Fiscal Responsibility Act. The NDAA markup here in this committee, also adhered to that gap. The Senate appropriators a few weeks ago announced that they actually had come to an agreement to lift that cap and allow for a 3.4% increase to DOD's budget. We're months away, unfortunately, from getting to the final end game in terms of both, I think, NDAA and the Defense Appropriations Conference process. But assuming we have headroom that's going to provide more just opportunities to sort of deal with pressing issues here. I mean, the number that we're talking about in terms of fixing this problem to get to 25 and 25, I mean, according to staff here, is roughly about $500 million, in terms of the 2024 and 2025 spending bills here. I mean, these are not figures, assuming we get more headroom, that really should be mission impossible for us to solve. And I realize, you're all operating under the PB that came over, but can you at least give us some, perspective in terms of just, is there, assuming that the funding is there, a way to get to 25 and 25?
There is. You're speaking, Ranking Member, to the commitment needed, and I think your line is right on target here. So, the commitment that can get us to capability that exists now. So this is, that commitment has to start immediately. The funding profile you mentioned is executable, and industry, I think, can deliver, the numbers needed. So we're talking about 250 airplane, to use round numbers. We would apply it across the entire fleet. So it wouldn't just be on a tanker, it would be on all the tankers. It wouldn't just be on a mobility airlift platform, it would be on all of the platforms. So we think it's reasonable and digestible. We think that the technology that exists right now is absolutely perfect. In this approach, though, we're gonna have varying, it's not gonna be one thing for everybody. It's gonna be a variety of kits that can be useful. That's gonna allow us the opportunity to test them out in demanding environments. And as we go forward in future resourcing endeavors, we'll have the data that can back up which one's best for the Joint Force. 25 by 25, it makes an enormous impact on the current fleet, yet gives you the flexibility in the out years to make adjustments and not to commit to just one thing. So, I think we're in a well position. When we get done with Niger, we'll have another set of data points when it comes to that roll-on kit, and we're incorporating all those lessons learned into everything we're planning for the fall. There's some big exercises going on this fall, and then most importantly into the summer exercise series in the Pacific that's going to happen in 2025.
Great. Well, thank you again to you and the witnesses, because again, as we sort of approach the end game in terms of negotiating 2025, I think this is really helpful to have in mind as that process begins. So with that, I yield back.
They've called votes. I'm going to recognize Chairman Waltz and then Ranking Member Davis. So Chairman Waltz, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For our folks watching back home, I think they would find it really astounding that our key strategic advantage, the thing we can do that nobody else in the world can do, which is to move a lot of military hardware and people and stuff from here all over the world, which is what you all do. But I think they would find it pretty incredible that They really can't talk to each other. There's not threat radar on board. The survivability of these birds that I've ridden in, Chairman's ridden in our entire career, isn't there and isn't going to be there. I mean, a goal is 25%. So can you just, and the answer can't be just give me more, because if you haven't seen our debt numbers, the well is running dry. So General Tabor, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, Tabor? Did I get that? Tabor, that's my North Florida.
Tabor.
All right. What can you do better? I mean, what can we do better to move faster and more efficiently? Do you just need to put roll-on kits across the board?
So I think that, thank you for the question. I think that it's a complex question, but it's really very simple. It does come down to resources and using them wisely and being consistent with our funding to get.
You got to understand, when I have the Secretary of the Air Force and I hold up a bag of bolts that cost $90,000 that should cost $100 in a hardware store, there's a lot of room to do better within your budget.
Absolutely, Congressman. It is something that is extraordinarily frustrating to us when we see these kinds of cost increases. What I would say about the lag in connectivity is that it's a reflection of the past that we've been in, operating in very permissive environments. Now, admittedly, we should have foreseen the need for this kind of capability. The fact is that we didn't. I mean, the best time to plant an oak tree was 30 years ago. The next best time is right now. And that's kind of where we are. So we are committed to fixing this problem.
How much would it cost to get to 100%?
Hard to say exactly how much.
Give me a
I'll tell you
ballpark.
that 900 aircraft times any cost is extraordinarily expensive. And so the trick that we have is to fund this capability while we're funding many other capabilities across the Air Force.
Sure.
To give us a complete capability. So I would not advocate for simply fixing the tanker problem and moving on to another. It's about appropriately funding the things that give us warfighting capability, of which mobility and tanker aircraft are one.
How much would it cost to get to 25? What's the cost estimate to get to 50%?
I don't think we have that number right now,
Can you come back to the committee with that number,
We certainly
please?
can.
And then I just want to overlay that, Admiral Trinque, with the status of our ready reserve fleet is really pretty abysmal. I mean, we're looking at what's the statistic I have? 17 out of 47 are over 50 years old. 40% in the last turbo activation in 2019 was ready for mobilizations. So we don't have the ships like we did in the first Gulf War to get our land forces where they need to go. We're completely, fair enough to say from Transcom perspective, we are heavily reliant on these birds to get our material, women equipment all over the world. Fair to say? I mean, we need to look at it in context of the total package here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is fair to say. We are committed, and General Van Novost is committed to sea lift recapitalization, which is not the focus of this discussion, but we do recognize that we need to invest to have younger ships in the ready reserve force. We also have a commercial first policy for sea lift. But everything you said is correct in that when we need to move quickly at scale, we do rely on Air Mobility Command and the Mobility Air Fleet, and so these investments are important to U.S. Transportation Command.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and General Tabor. If I could just foot stomp, please come back to us with that number. I know the building. I've worked in the building. I know you're hesitant to put a number out there, but we need to know how steep a hill we have to climb from an appropriation standpoint.
It's a fair question. We will certainly get back with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll now recognize Ranking Member Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We know the Air Force is engaged in a significant reorganization to address great power competition. As the Air Force is assessing capabilities, it is important that we remain focused on the sustainment tail of our assets. Whenever we have one solution or one private partner, I get concerned about our ability to manage and pay for the sustainment of our assets. I understand right now there are potential solutions for connectivity issues faced by mobility aircraft, like the roll-on, roll-off kits for the C-17s and the RTIC system for the KC-135 refueling tankers. Is the intent to ensure there's more than one solution for each aircraft to ensure redundancies and avoid risk in the sustainment till?
Thank you, Ranking Member. Absolutely. So the approach we have now, and it's important that we go back a little bit. So when I came in 3 years ago, we were on the heels of the Kabul evacuation. Instantly went into support for Ukraine, executed Mobility Guardian exercise in the Pacific, then went into support for Israel, airdrops in Gaza, Chad, and now then Haiti, and certainly Niger going on right now. So there is a collective body of data here that's really current and really meaningful. Now, those operations aren't at all what would happen in the Pacific if there were to be a conflict there, but they give us windows into the future that provide us an opportunity now to get after the capabilities we need. So the connectivity piece was never intended to be one size fits all. We simply can't do that, because every airplane's a little bit different. We have an amazing talent out there in innovators that are providing some of these. There are kits that exist today because airmen just decided to figure it out on their own. Can we bring together these radios, these servers, this antenna, and make it work? So as it lays right now, there's multiple vendors providing solutions, and there's more in line waiting to test them out. And we're seeing value in each one of those. We took a ride with your staff yesterday and showed an RTIC model that it provides 1,000% better situational awareness to the crew, yet still has a lot of capability that needs to be added to it. So that portfolio approach that you're describing, we're in 100% support of.
Okay, thank you. General Tabor, I'm aware that in recent years, TRANSCOM has not provided the unfunded priorities list to Congress. I applaud TRANSCOM for working with the other combatant commands to ensure priorities are covered within the President's budget. And I'm not advocating for TRANSCOM to submit an unfunded priorities list. However, between the Air Force's modernization efforts and immense costs, I am concerned that efforts to provide TRANSCOM and Air Force or Air Mobility Command with resources they need, including providing our airmen with vital communication systems, may become less of a priority. Can you commit, or in terms of how we will maintain a commitment to prioritizing this, how will the Air Force ensure that this will be a continued priority in the future?
Thank you. So this is very much something that is a big topic of conversation, both in, as you see, in the 25 budget that was presented, and as we prepare for the 26 cycle as well. In terms of unfunded priorities, what I can commit to is that it will continue to be a discussion. Of course, the unfunded priorities list comes from the Chief of Staff. He determines exactly what that is. You saw in this past year a plea for more money for spares, kind of getting at the fundamental issues that we see in sustainment of aircraft really across the Air Force, but certainly applicable to mobility and tanker aircraft. But you do have our commitment that this is something that we are continuing to advocate for, to resource for, to the degree that we can.
Thank you so much. I yield back.
I declare the committee in recess. Members should return immediately following the last vote at approximately 11:15. The hearing is resumed. I now recognize Ms. Strickland for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I first want to thank General Minihan for his 34 years of service. I understand that this is your last hearing, so thank you so much for serving our nation and doing it with honor and distinction. So I have the privilege of representing Joint Base Lewis McChord, the largest military installation on the West Coast and one of the largest in the country. And the airmen and C-17s that they fly provides combat airlift for America in all the missions that we do. Our mobility enterprise, especially C-17s, ensures that the U.S. military can project power and deter our adversaries. However, I'm also concerned that our mobility enterprise is aging rapidly and our ability for strategic airlift is degrading. So, General Tabor, the Air Force is currently developing its plans for next-generation air dominance and next-generation air refueling system. Given how critical mobility is to the joint fight, how is the Air Force starting to plan for the next generation of air mobility, especially in the current fiscally constrained environment?
Thank you, Congresswoman. This is another very large area for us. Right now, the next generation of air refueling systems is really the primary focus in the short term. And we're eagerly awaiting the results of an analysis of alternatives that will kind of guide us into the future. But it's not lost on us as well, to your point, of aging C-17s and C-5s more particularly. So that's yet another element that we do have in the cross-check that we do plan to address. We do not have an analysis of alternatives set up for that particular platform right now, but it's something that's likely to come in the future.
So we know you just said that you don't have an analysis right now. Do you have a projected date or some kind of hard line of when we want to see an analysis?
We do not, Congresswoman.
All right. And I guess my other question too is, given the usefulness of C-17s and the fact we don't necessarily have a report, how can you improve their effectiveness given what we have right now and how we maximize the use of them?
Yes, ma'am. This is a broader issue for all platforms in the Air Force fleet. But what it comes down to is ensuring proper sustainment funds for the aircraft. And that's something that we take very, very seriously on a year-by-year basis, but arguably should do more thoroughly across the FIDIP.
All right. Thank you. I yield back.
I now recognize Mr. DeLuzio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello, everybody. General Minihan, I know many have lauded your service and upcoming retirement. I'll add my voice to that. I'm a Navy guy, though, so we say fair winds and following seas. General Tabor, I want to direct my questions to you, if I could, and focus on update or questions around modernizing our air refueling capabilities. So I'm proud in my district to have 171st Air Refueling Wing, the Pennsylvania Air National Guard, in my district. Great unit, but balancing the burden of maintaining old aircraft while expecting and hoping for replacements. So what can you tell me about the timeline to fully replace the KC-135s, the KC-46s? Where do things stand?
Yes, sir. So this kind of ties into the previous question regarding the analysis of alternatives that's going on for the next generation of air refueling systems. We anticipate that coming in this fall. And then we will have a series of acquisitions events that determine exactly what that platform might look like. The good news is that KC-135s, despite the fact that they are admittedly getting older, as we all are, unfortunately, we're not in a crisis situation with them right now. We think that that fleet will sustain until approximately the mid-50s. Now, there will certainly be requirements to provide upgrades and do various sustainment actions between now and then. The more pressing point, I think, is the fact that there's over 360 KC-135s in the fleet, and to replace a fleet size like that takes some time. It doesn't happen overnight. So it is something that really is right in front of us, and we think that this analysis of alternatives will be the guiding light for that.
As you project it out now, do you expect or anticipate an overall increase or reduction in the number of refueling aircraft?
So right now we are governed by a floor of 466 tanker aircraft. We are not falling below that floor right now. or in the foreseeable future.
Now, I hesitate to ask this question because the answer is always money, but what do you need from the Congress, beyond what you've laid out, to expedite turnover and to make sure we aren't falling below that number?
So it is money, but you know that. I think more importantly is the timeliness of the money and getting budgets passed on time and having the flexibility to be able to divest older platforms at the rate that we need in order to recapitalize with a more modernized fleet.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
I now recognize Mr. Waltz.
Thank you. I have a broader question and then a pointed one, and I'm not sure who wants to address it, but can you just walk me through, and I'd like to request a follow-on briefing in more detail, the prioritization. Are you doing it by platform for the 25% and then follow-on for the 25 by 25? Is it by platform? Is it by AOR, by geography, age of the bird? Can you just walk me through kind of what's the broader plan? And then I'd like to request a follow-on. And then secondarily, how that then fits in the JADC2 broader umbrella that I'm also still trying to figure out exactly what that means. But thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for the question. Initially, we wanted to get out with our data-informed approach to 25 by 25 was going to look at the entire fleet so that we could understand how connectivity in each one of the aircraft could make a significant improvement on the battlefield. So we've done connectivity experiments on C-130, C-17, C-5s, KC-135, KC-46, the whole portfolio. The tanker amongst everybody is going to be the most precious resource in the Pacific AOR. So if the resourcing and the commitment were to follow, then we would heavily be biased towards a tanker approach and towards those that were operating in the Pacific the majority of the time. There is a need for that capability on a daily basis, and that need grows when we get into crisis and potential conflict. So that's the approach overall. The line into C3BM if you're working in the Air Force, or JADC2 if you're looking at to the Joint Force, and certainly the future Joint Warfighting concept, we are working everything we're doing is complementary to that. So if you were to ask the lead of the C3BM, he would say that the Air Mobility Command effort as it relates to 25 by 25 and connectivity is the most aligned with his effort there. It has to be that way. If that's not in place, then I can't have the ability to say that this is about supporting the joint team that's maneuvering in the battle space and in the battlefield, on the battle seas, battle skies, everything. So, I plan to back up that statement strongly with action, and the only way we can do that is if we're connected with not only the current architecture, but the future architectures that are being developed.
So in the 25 by 25, assume it sounds like from your opening testimony, you are not going to hit that goal. It doesn't look like. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But so 20 by 25, paint a picture for me in just, a minute or so. What does that then get us? We have 20% of our tankers that can now do SATCOM, can talk, have Link 16, can exchange data, in layman's terms for a couple Army knuckle draggers.
Yep. In layman's terms, 20% of every fleet. So 20% of the C-130s, 20% of all the lift, all the tanker capacity would have line of sight, beyond line of sight, secure communications. We will be able to tie into the tactical data links that the Joint Force uses, and we will be able to tie back to all the command and control echelons that the Joint Force, the combatant commands, and certainly my team, that runs an air operations center that's globally engaged every day back at Scott Air Force Base, would be able to tie through to all of that. It would have the characteristics of download speeds that are meaningful, meaning that it can get big data to the cockpit, okay? And then just like in every service, magnificent O3s and O4s out there doing it every day for America, making the decisions that they need to make with the data. What we can't do is ever put those teams in a position where they're relying on 9-hour-old intel to make the decisions. We'll never get there. On the ground, in the air, in the sea, we'll never get there if we do that. So the agility, the download speeds, the reduced latency, and then let the teams out there operate under mission type orders. Let them have the connectivity that we can enjoy when we have it, but also give them the latest info, intelligence, situational awareness, battlefield awareness, so that if it comes down to making a decision, then they make the best decision possible at the time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I now recognize the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Alford.
Thank you so much, Chair Kelly and Waltz and Ranking Member Courtney, and our best wishes to John Garamendi and his lovely wife, Patricia. Sir Leslie and I are praying for your complete and total healing. The ability of the U.S. military to project combat power anywhere across the globe has long been an advantage we have had over our competitors. Our adversaries know this, and in the event of war or even acting in a gray zone, they plan to contest our logistic networks and systems starting here in the homeland. Nowhere will logistics and sustainment be more difficult than in the Indo-Pacific. When contested, whether by sea or air, logistics will become a wicked, wicked problem. Our fleet of air mobility aircraft will be especially vulnerable in the Indo-Pacific area of responsibility, whether that is refueling aircraft or transporting personnel and the vital supplies needed to win. Our adversaries will want to disrupt our ability to sustain the warfighter. General Minihan, first off, thank you for your service. General Van Ovos, the commander of U.S. Transcom, and really any Air Force official speaking on this topic, has stated that continuous uninterrupted tanker recapitalization is one of the Air Force's top priorities. At the end of the current KC-46 buy, there will still be hundreds of aging KC-135s left in the fleet. What is the Air Force acquisition strategy for recapitalizing this fleet? And if a conflict were to occur, the tanker fleet will be pulled in many different directions by Stratcom, Northcom, and others. How does the Air Force continue to support the claim that 466 tankers is enough to sustain the force in a conflict with a peer adversary, sir?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. There's a portion of that question that's best suited for General Tabor on this, but I want to talk about the operational need. So 466 and a floor and the numbers are always, what's talked about. What I'm concerned about as an operational commander is the quality within that number. So it's not just the number. We have to make sure that the quality within that number can meet the demands of the Joint Force and the missions tasked to us. And that's why this connectivity concern, born from intuition at first, and certainly my experience in the Pacific, but now backed by the data, is showing us that we've got quality concerns that we need to be addressing. Yesterday, we flew a mission on a 1963 KC-135, operated by a fantastic fly-fix support crew. So the airmen are getting tremendous value out of the platforms that we have. But that airplane's 60 years old. And at the end of the tanker buy, from the KC-46, it'll be, exceeding 70 years old. So these quality concerns within the fleet from an operational perspective, how do we get the spare parts? How do we continue to get the technology on those aircraft that matter? How do we have the connectivity that can make the entire joint force successful? Those are the things we need to address aggressively.
General, I need to interrupt you because I have one more question I feel is very important. Air refueling remains the only DoD modality without commercial augmentation. A commercial augmentation could be a solution to this refueling problem that we're facing. It would help refuel the B-2 out of Whiteman Air Force Base and soon to be the B-21 Raider. The Navy has been using this for years. Why are we not discussing and using this option to commercialize air tanker to supplement and augment so that we can get this done?
Right. Thank you for the question. We have made a step towards commercial air refueling, and it's showing that there is value for the operation. So the Navy has, as you described, has made a commitment. In order to get the certification, my headquarters helped them along the way. We are coordinating with Transcom right now. So I'd say that the initial first work on what commercial air refueling really means for this nation has been done.
What about the KC-10s? I mean, we have them going to the scrapyard now.
Right.
Viable aircraft that can be used in a commercial purpose.
Yes, sir. There's enormous value in aircraft that have a potential to provide readiness in the commercial sector. So the important first work has been done. The analysis on the oversight and the certification is what's next, and we now have enough data to do that. And then importantly, we got to make sure that with commercial refueling, that we don't decrement the readiness of those in uniform flying the tankers. So those 3 bins of analysis are what need to be initiated and are being initiated. And then I think we'll be able to get to a point where we can make a holistic approach to the commercial air refueling.
Well, that sounds a whole lot more hopeful in that regarding using this commercialization augmentation that I've heard in the past. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you all, Admiral, General, and General, for being here today. And with that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Alford. I have one final question. I feel like you've been left out, Admiral Trinque, and so I'm going to remedy that. And after that, we're going to give General Minihan a few minutes. My final question is, Admiral Trinque, we know that the Army and Marine Corps partly intend to address the tyranny of distance in the Indo-Pacific by forward stationing units, with the Marine Corps explicitly intended to operate as stand-in forces. As you look at the operational plans in theater for the Indo-Pacific and the logistics behind getting and sustaining the Army and the Marine Corps in any future scenario, what type of delays will be incurred if our mobility forces can't communicate with their forward locations?
Thank you for the question, Chairman. And in my last job, I was in the Pacific working with the Marine Corps and specifically with 3MEF, so I know what you're speaking about. The operations plans, as we're adapting them, are looking to complicate operations for our adversary and give our operational commanders and our strategic leaders more options. And when we do that, we complicate our own logistics plans. So we have to take every opportunity to ensure that the capacity we have is credible. And as General Minihan was speaking about, there's a number, but it's also the quality inside the number. And so General Van Ovos talks about credible capacity. Credible capacity can help us deter the conflict. When our adversary knows that not only can we put soldiers and Marines as a stand-in force on the first island chain, but we can sustain them despite whatever our adversary can throw at us, then we can deter that conflict. It leads to decision advantage by our senior leaders, and it allows us to, again, deter the conflict, but fight and win if we need to.
Thank you very much. And I just add, I think prepositioning or putting folks in the right place, whether that's supplies or equipment or personnel, I think we've got to look at that more in the future where the most likely conflicts arise. And with that, General Minihan, I hesitate to give a general, a politician, or a lawyer unlimited time, but with that, you are recognized for unlimited time to address the committee, General Minihan.
I'm grateful, Chairman. So you're going to see the Irish in me here for a second. I promise I won't take more than a few seconds here. It's been an honor to suit up for this nation for 34 years. You know, to wear the cloth of the military and carry out the righteous missions given to us has been an absolute honor. I am not here, sitting here before you today because of anything I did. You know, I'm here because I've been surrounded by incredible Air Force and Joint teams for 34 years. And it's been a privilege to watch them in action. My family, my friends, the durable fabric of family and friends has been essential to getting through 34 years, and trust me, it wasn't in an enduring way, it's in an enjoyment way. There's been some tough times, but it's been the durable fabric of the Joint team and my family and friends that have gotten me here today. America gives us her sons and daughters, and we have an obligation to be worthy of that responsibility. So I make 2 promises moving forward here. I've got as close as 6 weeks to when I'm no longer General Minihan and Mr. Minihan, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get to see to completion the connectivity and the things that my force needs to be successful on the battlefield. The greatest thing that I can do for this team is ensure that I put a team on the field that's ready to win, not just be on the field, but is ready to win. So I'm going to do everything in my effort over the next 6 weeks to ensure that, and then I promise on that stage in 6 weeks, I'm going to have no energy left, and that's fine. And whoever's taking the guidon out of my hands is going to have to rip it out of my hands. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, and I once again want to thank Ashley, you and everyone on this, everyone, you know, our significant others. We can't do it without our families at home who suffer and sacrifice at least as much as we do, and I think even more. So I thank you both, and I wish you well in your future endeavors. And with that, the hearing is adjourned.